You hear breathing, shallow, slow, the kind that has hours left, not days. You smell camphor and starched linen, and the faint iron of a room where someone has been dying for weeks. You see a thin hand on a grey sheet in a darkened bedroom in Regensburg, Bavaria. And then you hear two words, in a broken English no one else in the room understands. Old Sisi. In the next 24 hours, the dying woman will speak exactly 4 more sentences. Then she will be gone. Those 4 sentences explain why the most photographed woman in 19th century Europe, the Empress of Austria-Hungary, Elizabeth, known to the world as Sisi, has left Vienna, left her court, left her husband, and crossed 400 kilometers of empire to sit on this bed. Her name was Helenen in Bavaria. Her family called her Néné. For 70 years the world has known her, if at all. From the 1955 Romy Schneider trilogy that made her sister famous. In those films she appears briefly, is publicly rejected by the emperor at a ball in Bad Ischl, and then vanishes from the story. The film handles her heartbreak in 2 lines and assures the audience gently that she will find someone else. What the film cut out is almost everything that actually happened to her. The Bavarian State Archives and the Thurn und Taxis family records in Regensburg both hold letters that no English-language biography of the Habsburgs has ever quoted. That is usually where the women live. In the archives nobody translated, recovering them, one at a time, from the documents their own century almost threw away. That is what Unleashed Secrets does. If that sounds like your kind of story, the subscribe button is down there. She was supposed to be empress. She became a regent and grew one of the wealthiest estates in Europe for 12 years. She buried a husband at 33, a daughter at 20, a son at 23. And she never remarried. And when stomach cancer came for her at 56, the only person she wanted beside her was the sister who had taken her throne. This is the life they edited out of her. Helene Caroline Therese was born on April 4, 1834 in Munich. Her father, Duke Maximilian Joseph in Bavaria, was a strange man by royal standards. He played the zither. He travelled the Bavarian countryside with a small circle of artists and musicians. He avoided palace duties whenever he could. Her mother, Princess Ludovica, was a daughter of the late King of Bavaria. According to Brigitte Hamann, whose 1981 biography of the Empress remains the definitive academic work, Ludovica raised her 10 children with, quote, a deliberate, rural freedom. 3 years after Helene was born, her little sister arrived. The family called her Sisi. They grew up at Possenhofen Castle, a modest estate on the west bank of Lake Starnberg, far from the stiffness of the Munich court. They read together. They learned French, as every aristocratic child in Europe did, and at some point in the late 1840s. We don't know exactly when or from which tutor. They took up English. It was not a useful language in their world. French was the language of courts. German was the language of home. English was nothing. It was the language of an island nobody in Bavaria had any reason to visit. And precisely for that reason, it became theirs. They spoke it to each other almost constantly, a private code. Marie Valerie, Sisi's youngest daughter, whose diaries were edited and published in 2005 by the historians Martha and Horst Schad, wrote that her mother and her aunt Néné spoke English to each other nearly all the time. 2 Bavarian princesses, inventing a language no one around them understood. Their personalities were opposites. Sisi rode, hunted, ran barefoot, wrote poetry. Helene sat with her needlework. She read. She prayed. According to every chronicler who met her as a child, she was unusually quiet. Their mother worried. Helene seemed too serious for her age. And yet, in the cruel irony that was about to determine everything, those exact qualities, that gravity, that obedience, that discipline, made her perfect for a throne. In the summer of 1853, a letter arrived from Vienna. The letter was from Archduchess Sophie of Austria, Ludovica's older sister, and, more relevantly, the mother of the 23-year-old Emperor Franz Joseph. Sophie had a problem. Her son needed a wife. And here the story has to be reclassified. From Vienna's perspective, this was not a decision about love. It was not a decision about beauty. It was asset allocation. A Wittelsbach bride was a diplomatic instrument. She bought Bavaria's loyalty at a time when the German states were fracturing. She bought the empire time, and Helene was the rational instrument. Quiet, obedient, predictable, the kind of wife who would not ask questions and would produce heirs on schedule. Sisi, barely 15 at the time of the letter, was the volatile option. Wild, impossible to predict, already showing the temperament that would later drive her to ride horses across the Hungarian plains alone, to refuse food for weeks, to flee every palace she was ever installed in. Choosing Sisi in Sophie's own dynastic framework was irrational, which is why when her son did it, she never forgave him. Her relationship with her daughter-in-law, documented across decades of Habsburg court correspondence, would become a 30-year trench war. But first the meeting had to happen. The two mothers arranged it for Bad Ischl in Upper Austria, the imperial summer resort. The occasion, the emperor's 23rd birthday, August 1853. Ludovica, Helena, and 15-year-old Sisi, brought along almost as an afterthought, as a companion, travelled from Munich. On the way, their luggage was delayed. Worse, the Bavarian court was in mourning for a recently deceased uncle. All three women arrived at Bad Ischl dressed in heavy funereal black. On Helene, tall, dark-haired, dark-eyed. The black smothered her. On Sisi, fair, golden-haired, wild. It made her glow. Franz Joseph meets them. He barely notices Helene. He cannot stop looking at Sisi. Within 48 hours, he tells his mother he will marry the younger sister or no one at all. Sophie is furious. Ludovica is panicked. And Helene, publicly, visibly, in front of the entire imperial household, is passed over. The engagement of Franz Joseph and Elizabeth is announced the next day. Helene is 19 years old. She has lost the throne of Austria because she wore the wrong dress and had the wrong hair on the wrong afternoon. And here is where most tellings of Néné's story end. The 1955 film stops here. The humiliated sister, the jilted bride, the woman who will, we are assured, find someone else. What happened next is the part no one tells. Helene did not break with Sisi. This was the thing nobody expected. Not the mothers, not the court gossips in Vienna, not anyone who had ever seen two sisters fight over a man. Helene stayed at her little sister's side, through the engagement, through the brutal 8-month preparation, the Habsburg protocol lessons, the history of dynasties to memorize, the dresses to fit, through the wedding itself on April 24th, 1854, in the Augustinian church in Vienna, when Sisi, overwhelmed, sobbing, 16 years old and terrified, walked out of that church as Empress of Austria. Helene was in the procession, standing directly behind her. Then Helene went home to Possenhofen and collapsed. Ludovica wrote in her letters, preserved in the Wittelsbach family archive at the Bayerisches Hauptstaatsarchiv in Munich, that she feared her eldest daughter was going to enter a convent. that Helene was slipping into something dark. What Helene did instead was walk. She walked to the villages around Lake Starnberg. She walked to the houses where someone was dying, to the children with fever, to the old women with nowhere to go. She brought money she had no need for, medicines that family physicians had prescribed to her, and a silence that the villagers remembered for the next half-century. What Helene was practicing. A 19-year-old princess showing up personally, without ceremony, in the homes of the dying, is what we now call home hospice. She was doing it in 1855. The term would not be coined for another 120 years. The villagers called her, in the local Bavarian dialect, der Engel von Possenhofen, the Angel of Possenhofen. It was not a beatification. It was a practical name for the woman who showed up when nobody else would. 5 years passed like this. By 1858, Helene was 24. In her social class, in her century, this was an old maid. And then, at a hunting party organised by her father, she met Maximilian Anton, hereditary Prince of Thurn and Taxis. To understand what that marriage meant, you need to understand the family. The Thurn and Taxis were, effectively, the FedEx of the Holy Roman Empire for 3 centuries, from the 1490s until 1867. A single private family owned every official letter that crossed Central Europe. They had become one of the wealthiest houses on the continent, delivering other people's words. Maximilian Anton was kind, quiet, shy, 26 years old, and already quietly ill with a kidney condition no one in the family yet fully understood. He fell in love with Helene almost immediately. The King of Bavaria objected. According to Erika Bestenreiter's 2004 study of the Wittelsbach sisters, the king, Ludovica's own nephew, argued that a Wittelsbach could not marry downward into a house that, however rich, was not a reigning royal dynasty. Helene was on the verge of losing this too. And that was when, in an irony no one could have written, Franz Joseph himself intervened to allow the marriage. The emperor who rejected her became the reason she was allowed to marry at all. August 24th, 1858. Possenhofen. Helene and Maximilian Anton were married. 4 children would follow. She was, by every account of those years, happy. Then in 1860, another letter came. Sisi. 3 years into marriage, 2 children already, crushed under Sophie's control of her household, isolated, watched, silenced, collapsed. She stopped eating. She was coughing blood. The imperial doctors whispered tuberculosis. She was sent first to Madeira, then to Corfu. None of it was working. In Vienna, the court was quietly beginning to prepare for her death. Franz Joseph wrote to Helene personally, begged her to come. Helene had a 1-year-old daughter, a baby still nursing, a husband whose health was beginning to fail. She left all of them. She went to her sister. What she found there was a woman who had forgotten how to live. Helene stayed for months. She sat with Sisi. She read to her in English. She made her eat. She walked her through gardens. The Viennese ladies-in-waiting, writing in dispatches now held in the Österreichisches Staatsarchiv in Vienna, described Helene like this. She has always a calming influence. She is herself so reasonable and orderly, and she tells Elizabeth the truth. Sisi recovered. The rejected bride of Bad Ischl was the one who kept the Empress of Austria alive. And she did this not once, but a dozen times across the next 3 decades. Every time Sisi collapsed, every time she disappeared into depression, every time the court could not reach her, Helene was sent for. Helene came. This is what the film wrote out of her. Not the humiliation, the nursing. At this point in any normal story, we would have a resolution. Helene had the happy marriage Sisi was denied, 4 healthy children, a husband who loved her, a palace in Regensburg, a sister who still needed her. But she was born in the 19th century, and in the 19th century, nothing ends at the happy part. June 26th, 1867. Maximilian Anton, her husband, died in Regensburg. Chronic kidney failure, complicated by pulmonary collapse. He was 35 years old. Helene was 33. Their youngest child was 6 weeks old. She did not remarry. Her father-in-law, astonishingly for his time, entrusted her with the administration of the entire Thurn and Taxis fortune, estates in Bavaria, Bohemia, Croatia, Slovenia. Helene, at 33, ran one of the largest private estates in Europe for the next 12 years. According to the family records at the Fürst Thurn und Taxis Zentralarchiv in Regensburg, she grew it. February 7th, 1881. Her daughter Elizabeth, named after the aunt who had saved her mother 2 decades earlier, died after giving birth to her 3rd child. She was 20 years old. Helene withdrew from public life. November 1885. Her eldest son, Maximilian Maria, 23 years old, head of the family for just 2 years, in the middle of rebuilding Schloss St. Emmeram into a palace that still stands in Regensburg today, died suddenly, heart failure, a congenital defect no doctor had ever diagnosed. This was the burial that broke her. Marie Valerie wrote, "Aunt Néné was, in her terrible grief, not always in her right mind. Temporary mental disturbance, deep melancholy. The woman whom the Viennese court had called the stable one, the reasonable one, the one who tells the truth. Cracked. And here something strange. In these same years her sister, the Empress, was losing everything too. January 30th, 1889. Mayerling, Sisi's only son, Crown Prince Rudolf, shot himself and his 17-year-old lover in a hunting lodge. The Crown of Austria-Hungary had no direct heir. The 2 sisters, both in their 50s now, were burying children at the same rate. The Empress and the Angel, both were losing. They wrote to each other, in English. Most of those letters were destroyed or have never been published. The ones that survive are short. And in the spring of 1890, Helene was diagnosed with stomach cancer. She was 56 years old. There was nothing to be done. May 15th, 1890. Schloss St. Emmeram, Regensburg, Bavaria. The Empress of Austria has arrived. She has left Vienna, left Franz Joseph, left every obligation of the empire, travelled by special train to her sister's bedside. For a decade by this point, Sisi has been travelling almost constantly. Corfu, Madeira, England, Ireland, Greece, Egypt. Running from the court, running from Rudolph's death, running from her own life. But for this one thing, she has stopped running. Helene is dying in a darkened bedroom. She has been unable to eat for weeks. She can barely speak. Marie Valerie, Sisi's daughter, is in the next room. She will record what happens in her diary that same evening. It is the only reason we know what is said. A brief note here. Marie Valerie's diary is our only source for this exchange. Hamann quotes it in her 1981 biography. Egon Caesar Conte Corti, in his 1934 biography of the Empress, frames the same moment with slightly different emphasis. But the specific English phrasings, hard puffs, had hearts, trace directly back to Marie Valerie's entry that night. Helene opens her eyes. She sees her sister, and, in the language they have shared since they were little girls at Possenhofen, she says, "Old Sisi." Just that. 2 words. No titles, no formalities, No 56 years of European history, just the nickname of a sister she had known since she was 3 years old. Sisi sits down on the edge of the bed. She takes Helene's hand, and she says, in the same broken English they spoke as children, "We too have had hard puffs in our lives." Hard puffs, not a real English expression, something they invented, from a tutor, from a book, from each other. A phrase only they used. It means, "We have taken some hard blows." Helene looks at her sister, and then she corrects her. "Yes, but we had hearts," Sisi asks softly in their shared language. "Do you have pain?" Helene answers, "No, nothing." Those are the last words Helene ever speaks to her sister. They are the last words she ever speaks at all. She dies at 7 o'clock the next evening, May 16th, 1890. Her sister is still at her bedside. Helene was buried in the family crypt at St. Emmeram's Abbey in Regensburg. No mausoleum, no state portrait in the Kunsthistorisches Museum, no film. The 1955 Romy Schneider trilogy that immortalised her sister ends before she dies and never shows her existing past Bad Ischl. Sisi went back to Vienna, and then to Corfu, and then to Geneva. 8 years and 4 months after the last sentence Helene ever spoke to her, on September 10th, 1898, an Italian anarchist named Luigi Lucchini walked up to the Empress of Austria on the lakefront at Geneva and stabbed her through the heart with a sharpened file. She walked 100 metres before she fell. She was 60. Marie Valerie, who had lost both her mother and her aunt within the same decade, wrote in her diary that the two sisters were finally together again. Here is the part Vienna never meant to write. Sophie chose Helene because Helene was the rational instrument. Franz Joseph chose Sisi because Sisi glowed in a black dress. What Vienna got was an empress who could not live without the sister they had rejected. For 37 years, from the humiliation at Bad Ischl to the deathbed at Regensburg. Every time Sisi collapsed, Néné came. Every single time. The throne of Austria eventually fell. The Thurn and taxis postal monopoly ended in 1867. The same year Helene's husband died, the Habsburg Empire eventually dissolved into a dozen smaller countries that none of these people would have recognised. Possenhofen Castle still stands on the west bank of Lake Starnberg. It is a school now. Schloss St. Emmeram still stands in Regensburg. Tourists visit. And in a diary now preserved in the Wittelsbach archives, transcribed and published by Martha and Horst Schad, those 4 English sentences survive. They had everything that could be taken from them. Thrones, husbands, children, health, time. They lost all of it. What they did not lose was each other. 2 sisters, 56 years, 1 language nobody else could hear. Yes, but we had hearts,